The steam from my coffee blurred the world outside the cafe window into a watercolor mess. My mind is scattered as the pedestrians rushing by. Then, like a jolt from the blue, there he was, Marcos, a blast from my past, weaving through the crowd, unmistakable. Jenna, his voice, richer but just as warm, pulled me back to reality. The chance encounter was a spark in my mundane routine, reigniting old college memories. We exchanged numbers, the digits feeling like a secret pact. That evening, my phone buzzed with a message from Marcos. "It was great seeing you today. Let's catch up soon?" What harm could there be in texting back? The conversation flowed effortlessly, as if the years hadn't put any distance between us. We talked for hours, the digital clock on my phone marking the passage of time like a silent witness to our rekindled connection. The next week, under the guise of a work lunch, we met. Laughter and stories filled the space between us, erasing the years. It was as if we'd never parted, our connection immediate and intense. I hadn't laughed that freely in years, not since. I pushed the thought away. Lying to Aaron came easier than I expected. "A late meeting," I said, avoiding his eyes. Guilt gnawed at me, but the thrill of secrecy was intoxicating. Our secret lunches became our little escape until one day, as we lingered over coffee, Marcos's hand found mine. The touch was electric, a shockwave through my system, culminating in a kiss that sealed our fates. I should have pulled away. Instead, I found myself leaning in, lost in the moment. The walk home was a battle with my conscience. Guilt clashed with exhilaration. What had I done? Yet, the memory of the kiss sent shivers down my spine. I was living a double life, and the thrill was unlike anything I'd experienced. Each secret meeting with Marcos, each lie to Aaron, added layers to my deception. I juggled my dual lives with a skill I didn't know I possessed, each day blurring into the next in a haze of anticipation and dread. This wasn't me. I wasn't this person. Yet, as I looked in the mirror, the woman who stared back was a stranger, caught in the web of her own making, thrilling in the secrecy and danger of an affair. The realization was sobering, but the pull of this new, exhilarating life was too strong to resist. The instant I saw him, my heart skipped. Not Aaron, my husband of 5 years, but Marcos, a blast from my past, standing in line at the coffee shop with that same crooked smile that could unravel me. "Jenna?" he asked, as if seeing a ghost. "Marcos," I exclaimed, the familiarity of his name on my lips feeling like a secret sin. We exchanged numbers, a seemingly innocent act that marked the beginning of my descent. That evening, as Aaron watched TV, I texted Marcos under the guise of scrolling through social media. "Great running into you today," I typed, my heart racing with a mix of guilt and excitement. His reply came fast, igniting a conversation that lasted until the early hours. It was thrilling, dangerous, and felt entirely too right. Lunch with Marcos was supposed to be a catch-up between old friends. Instead, it sparked something new, or perhaps rekindled what was never fully extinguished. We laughed, shared stories, and lingered over coffee, the connection undeniable. I lied to Aaron that day, saying I was swamped with work. It was the first lie of many. The affair escalated quickly. Marcos kissed me after one of our secret meetups, and I didn't resist. The guilt was overshadowed by a newfound exhilaration. I was leading a double life, torn between my husband and the man who had reignited something in me that I didn't even realize had been extinguished. Aaron's suspicion grew with each late night and unexplained absence. "Where were you really?" he'd press, his voice heavy with doubt. I became a master of deflection, accusing him of being paranoid. Even as the evidence mounted against me, Marcos gave me a necklace, a tangible symbol of our affair. I hid it in the back of a sock drawer, a poor attempt at keeping my two worlds separate. Aaron found it one day, his face a mix of confusion and hurt. "It's just from an old friend," I lied, barely recognizing my own voice. The tension in our home became palpable, arguments more frequent and more heated. I bought a second phone to communicate with Marcos, a move that felt like crossing a point of no return. Aaron nearly discovered it one evening, and I managed to hide it just in time, my heart pounding in my chest. The fear of getting caught was exhilarating and terrifying in equal measure. Each step I took away from Aaron and towards Marcos was laced with deception and betrayal. I was losing myself in the thrill of the affair, blinded by desire and the intoxication of being wanted in a way I hadn't felt in years. But with each lie, each secret rendezvous, the foundation of my marriage crumbled a little more, setting me on a path towards an inevitable, devastating collapse. The moment Marcos asked me to leave Aaron, my world stood still. Think about it, Jenna. We could have something real, he urged, his eyes searching mine for a hint of agreement. I hesitated, every fiber of my being screaming that this was the point of no return. I'll consider it, I finally whispered. A promise that felt more like a betrayal with each breath I took. As I lay awake that night, Aaron's steady breathing beside me, I allowed myself to fantasize about a life with Marcos. A life filled with passion, excitement, and the unknown. We'd travel, explore new places, and build a life together away from the shadows of deceit. The plan was like a vivid dream, so tempting yet fraught with guilt. The bubble burst when Marcos, driven by impatience or folly, showed up at my workplace unannounced. This presence, meant to be a grand gesture, turned into a spectacle. Word got around fast, and by the evening, Aaron confronted me with a look that chilled me to the bone. I heard about your visitor today, Jenna. What's going on? His voice was calm, but the hurt behind it was palpable. Faced with Aaron's ultimatum, my world crumbled. Come clean or it's over, he stated, leaving no room for excuses. The truth spilled out in a flood of tears and confessions. I told him about Marcos, the affair, and the indecision tearing me apart. I begged for his forgiveness, for a chance to make things right, but the damage was done. Aaron's departure was silent, a quiet storm leaving devastation in its wake. He needed time to think, he said, but the finality in his voice told me everything I needed to know. The absence of his presence in our home was a stark reminder of the cost of my choices. In the aftermath, my decision to be with Marcos felt like stepping into a void. Relief at no longer living a lie was tinged with fear of the unknown. I had chosen a path that promised happiness, but was littered with the debris of a broken marriage and a shattered trust. As I moved forward, each step was heavy with the realization of what I had lost and what I hoped to gain. The world I thought I knew shattered in an instant. The twist came out of nowhere, leaving me gasping for air. Marcos, the man I had risked everything for, casually mentioned he was married and had no intention of leaving his wife. It's complicated, Jenna. You wouldn't understand, he said with a shrug, his words slicing through me like a knife. Betrayal burned through me as I confronted Marcos. How could you do this to me? I demanded, my voice shaking with anger and disbelief. He looked at me, not with remorse, but with cold indifference. Life's complicated, Jenna. I thought you knew what this was. His dismissal of my feelings was a wake-up call, a bitter pill that I swallowed with tears streaming down my face. Desperate for a semblance of the life I had so recklessly thrown away, I tried to reach out to Aaron, but he had vanished from my world, as if he had never been a part of it. His phone number was changed, and the home we shared now felt like a tomb, echoing with the ghosts of our past. Isolation crept in as friends chose sides, an invisible line drawn in the sand. Most sided with Aaron, their silent judgment a constant reminder of the wreckage I had caused. Loneliness became my only companion, its weight pressing down on me with every breath I took. I threw myself into work, seeking solace in the numbing routine of daily tasks. But solace remained elusive, a distant mirage in the desert of my reality. The encounter with Aaron, seeing him laugh and hold someone else, twisted the knife deeper into my heart. Jealousy and loss consumed me, a toxic cocktail that left me reeling. My performance at work began to suffer as depression wrapped its cold fingers around me. The vibrant, confident woman I once was faded into a shadow, a mere echo of her former self. Regret became my constant companion, whispering reminders of the happiness I had so carelessly destroyed. The realization of the full extent of my actions came crashing down on me like a tidal wave. The understanding that I had not only lost Aaron but had also lost myself in the process was a bitter truth I could no longer ignore. The cost of my choices was etched into the very fabric of my being. a price paid in full with a heart shattered beyond recognition. From the moment I stepped into the fallout of my own making, the consequences of my actions bore down on me with the weight of the world. My career, once a source of pride, became a battlefield. Whispers filled the halls, each murmur a pointed reminder of the scandal I had caused. Social invitations ceased, and colleagues who once greeted me with warm smiles now offered nothing but cold shoulders. The professional world I had built on years of hard work crumbled beneath the stigma of my personal failures. In this new, lonelier existence, I sought solace in the small things. A book read without interruption, a solitary walk in the park, a cup of coffee savored in silence. These moments, insignificant as they might seem, became my lifelines, tiny beacons of light in the overwhelming darkness. I was learning to accept this altered state of being, finding a semblance of peace in the simplicity of solitude. The unexpected news of Marcos's downfall reached me through the grapevine, a twisted sword of poetic justice. His wife had left him, taking their children and the remnants of their life together, leaving him to stew in the aftermath of his own deceit. I couldn't help but wonder if he felt the same gnawing emptiness that had become my constant companion. Reflection became a daily ritual, a time to confront the hurt I had caused and the karma I now faced. The realization that I was not the victim but the architect of my own misery was a bitter pill to swallow. With each passing day, I came to understand the depth of the pain I had inflicted, not just on Aaron, but on everyone caught in the crossfire of my selfishness. In the midst of my introspection, life offered a glimmer of hope in the form of someone new. He was kind, understanding, and, most importantly, unaware of the chaos that had been my life. Yet, the scars of my past held me back, fear anchoring me to the spot, unable to move forward. The thought of risking someone else's heart was a risk too great to take, leaving me trapped in a cycle of loneliness and regret. Therapy became my sanctuary, a place to unravel the tangled web of emotions and actions that had led me to this point. Through sessions filled with tears and revelations, I began to understand the motivations behind my choices and the steps needed to heal. It was a slow, often painful process, but with each breakthrough, I felt a piece of my burden lift, giving way to a cautious optimism. Small improvements in my mental health emerged like the first rays of dawn after a long night. Laughter no longer felt foreign, and hope, a concept I had once abandoned, started to take root. Yet, progress is not a straight line. A lesson I learned the hard way when I ran into Marcos. His attempt to rekindle what we had, a desperate bid to cling to the past, served as a stark reminder of how far I had come, and how easily it could all unravel. Facing Marcos again, I found the strength I didn't know I had. Rejecting his advances, I realized that the journey I was on was mine alone, a path towards redemption and self-forgiveness that no one else could walk for me. The setback, instead of breaking me, fortified my resolve. I was not the woman I had been, and though the road ahead was uncertain, I was finally ready to face it head-on, one small step at a time. The moment I turned Marcos away, something inside me clicked. It was as if I was seeing the world for the first time in color, realizing I didn't need him or his false promises to define my worth. That rejection wasn't just about him. It was a declaration of my independence, a step towards reclaiming the life I had so carelessly set on fire. In the wake of that decision, I turned inward, focusing on personal growth with a fervor I hadn't known I possessed. I was determined to learn from my past mistakes, to emerge from the ashes of my broken marriage a wiser, stronger person. This wasn't about redemption in the eyes of others, but about proving to myself that I could rise above the chaos I had created. New interests became my solace and my salvation. I threw myself into painting, the strokes of my brush a tangible expression of the tumultuous emotions raging within me. Yoga offered me a sense of peace and grounding, each pose a step towards finding balance in the chaos. These weren't just hobbies, they were lifelines, pulling me back from the brink of despair. There were moments of weakness, of course. Late at night, the loneliness would become unbearable, and my thoughts would drift to Aaron. What if I reached out? Could there be a chance for reconciliation? But as dawn broke, clarity would return. That chapter of my life was closed, not out of spite or regret, but out of a newfound respect for the both of us. We deserve to move on, to find happiness apart from the wreckage of our past. Acknowledging my role in the destruction of our marriage was a bitter pill to swallow. It was easier to play the victim, to blame outside forces for the choices I had made. But true growth meant facing the uncomfortable truths, owning up to my mistakes, and learning to live with them. It was a painful process, fraught with moments of self-doubt and regret, but it was necessary. Forgiveness, especially forgiving oneself, is a journey with no roadmap. It wasn't a moment of epiphany, but a gradual acceptance that, despite the hurt I had caused, I was still deserving of love and happiness. This realization didn't erase the past, but it allowed me to view it through a lens of compassion and understanding, both for myself and for those I had hurt. In the midst of this tumultuous journey, I met someone new. Not a romantic interest, but a friend. Someone who saw me not for my failures, but for the person I was striving to become. This friendship was a tentative step towards rebuilding my social circle, a reminder that connection and belonging were still possible, even after everything that had happened. Each of these actions, from the rejection of Marcos to the forging of new friendships, was a step on the path to recovery. It was a path littered with obstacles and setbacks, but also one that offered glimpses of hope and moments of clarity. As I navigated this terrain, I did so with a newfound resilience, a deep-seated belief that, no matter how far I had fallen, it was always possible to stand up, dust myself off, and begin the journey towards healing and redemption. The world as I knew it had crumbled, but from its ashes, I began to see the glimmers of a new life, a new perspective that was both terrifying and liberating. It was as if I had been looking through a kaleidoscope, the patterns of my existence constantly shifting, never quite settling. But now, the pieces were starting to form a picture I could understand, one where the sharp edges of my past mistakes didn't cut as deeply. With this newfound clarity came a wave of gratitude. It might seem strange, feeling thankful for a journey marked by betrayal and loss, but it had taught me lessons I couldn't have learned any other way. I was grateful for the pain, for it had forced me to grow, to evolve beyond the person I once was. It was a hard-won wisdom, one that came at a great cost but was invaluable nonetheless. Emboldened by this sense of appreciation for my tumultuous journey, I reached out to old friends, hoping to mend bridges I had thought irrevocably burned. The receptions were mixed. Some doors remained closed, the hurt too deep to forgive, while others opened tentatively, the bonds of past friendships cautiously explored once more. It was a humbling experience, a reminder that not all wounds heal with time, but some connections, however frayed, can still be salvaged. In the quiet moments, I found stability, a sense of calm that had eluded me for so long. My life, once defined by the chaos of my choices, had settled into a rhythm that was soothing in its predictability. I cherished this peace, understanding now that the storm had been necessary to appreciate the stillness. Yet, with stability came the full realization of what I had lost. It was a clarity that brought with it a profound sense of sorrow for the life I could have had, for the love I had squandered. Some things, once broken, can't be mended, and the acceptance of that truth was a bitter pill to swallow. It was a loss that was deeply felt, a void that no amount of self-improvement or new perspectives could fill. The final confrontation with Aaron was a moment suspended in time, a culmination of all the steps I had taken on this journey of self-discovery. His words, cold yet not unkind, were a stark reflection of the irreversible damage my actions had caused. "I'm happier without you," he said simply, and in his eyes, I saw the truth of it. It was the closure I had long sought. It had offered no solace, only the stark realization of my complete downfall. As I watched Aaron walk away, a chapter of my life closed forever, I was left to reflect on the irreversible damage of my choices. There was no redemption to be found, no turning back the clock on the pain caused. My journey had come full circle, leaving me to navigate the remnants of a life. The night was unusually cold for September, and I was typing away at my computer, the glow of the screen casting long shadows across the room. Big project at the office, I had told Mia, my voice a mixture of fatigue and a hint of something I hoped she couldn't detect. Lately, those late nights had become more frequent, a necessary evil in the world of IT. Or so I made it seem. Mia had been understanding, almost too understanding. That should have been my first clue. It wasn't until she found the hotel receipt, a slip of paper that felt like a brick thrown through the window of our lives, that things began to unravel. This was from last Thursday, she said, her voice steady, the receipt in her hand shaking just slightly. You said you were working late. I was. It was for a client meeting, I lied, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. I could see the doubt creeping into her eyes, a storm brewing in the calm. But a hotel, Alex? Her question was a dagger, and I had no armor. I scrambled for an explanation, any lifeline that would pull us back from the edge we were teetering on. It was just more convenient, with the project deadlines. My voice trailed off, unconvincing even to my own ears. The silence that followed was deafening. Mia's suspicion had taken root, and no amount of denial could weed it out. She began to watch me more closely, her glances lingering a little too long whenever I picked up my phone or stepped out of the room to take a call. The trust we had built over the years was crumbling, and I was powerless to stop it. Feeling cornered and isolated, Mia found solace in Ethan, a colleague of hers. Ethan, with his easy smile and listening ear, became her confidant, her escape from the growing chasm between us. Their affair, a secret dance in the shadows of our failing marriage, began shortly after. I was oblivious, caught up in my web of lies and half-truths, too consumed by my guilt to see the signs. The guilt? Oh, it ate at me, a relentless, gnawing beast. Yet, I convinced myself it was Mia who had pushed me to this. Her inability to trust, her constant questioning. I was the victim, or so I liked to think. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, our home became a battlefield, a constant tug of war between suspicion and denial. But it was Mia's heart that was the real casualty, torn between the love she once had for me and the new affection she found in Ethan's arms. In the end, it wasn't just about the late nights, the secret messages, or the hotel receipts. It was about us, Mia and I, and how far we had drifted from the shore of our love, caught in the currents of betrayal and regret. The emotional toll was evident, etched deep into Mia's face, a mirror of the turmoil raging inside her. And there I was, the architect of our downfall, watching helplessly as the life we had built together crumbled around us. The moment I decided to surprise Mia with breakfast in bed was the moment my world started to crumble. It was supposed to be a gesture, a bridge over the growing distance between us. Lately, I've been trying harder, reaching out with affection in hopes of mending whatever rift had formed unseen. But as I balanced the tray in one hand, nudging our bedroom door open with the other, the sight that greeted me wasn't one of sleepy gratitude but of stark betrayal. There, on Mia's phone, illuminated against the morning dim, was a message that cut through any pretense of ignorance I might have clung to. "Can't stop thinking about you," it read, signed with a heart and Ethan's name. The phone, usually guarded like a treasure, lay forgotten in her rush to the shower, a silent confession on our sheets. The confrontation was inevitable. The words spilled out, heated and sharp, a clashing of hurt and betrayal. "Mia, what's this about Ethan?" My voice, a mix of anger and disbelief, filled the room as she returned, wrapped in a towel, the color draining from her face. Her confession was a blow, each word a hammer to the foundations of our marriage. Yes, there had been an affair. Yes, she had feelings for him. But it was my distance, my secrets, that had driven her to it. Or so she said. We stumbled into a temporary resolution, a band-aid over a gaping wound. Counseling, we agreed, was worth a shot. Mia would end things with Ethan, and we would try to salvage the ruins of our relationship. But the seed of doubt, once planted, is a tenacious thing. Despite her assurances, despite our sessions that peeled back layers of misunderstanding and pain, the disconnect lingered. It wasn't long before Mia relapsed into Ethan's arms. I could see it, the shift in her, a lightness that wasn't for me. And Ethan, with his own designs, wasn't content to be a secret any longer. He wanted Mia, all in, pushing her towards decisions that once would have been unthinkable. The day Mia spoke of leaving, of starting anew with Ethan, was the day I realized the full extent of my naivety. There was no anger left in me, only a profound, hollowing sadness. She felt trapped, she said, caught between duty and desire, and Ethan offered a way out. As I listened, the pieces fell into place. The late-night whispers, the guarded texts, the sudden tricks out of town. To clear her head, all roads led to Ethan, and Mia, my Mia, was planning to leave, to dismantle the life we had built together for a chance at happiness with another man. In that moment, I understood the bitter truth of our unraveling. Love, once unshakable, could be eroded by neglect, by secrets, by the slow accumulation of unspoken hurts. Mia had made her choice, and in doing so, unveiled the depth of our estrangement. Our marriage, once the center of my universe, was now a constellation of could-have-beens, a story of love lost to the chaos of miscommunication and unmet needs. The moment I clicked send on the email to the private investigator, my heart was pounding against my chest like it was trying to break free. It felt like crossing a point of no return. Mia's late-night whispers, the secret glances at her phone, and now, the unexplained withdrawals from our joint account. Every piece added weight to the sinking feeling in my gut. I wasn't prepared for the speed with which everything unraveled. Within days, the investigator laid bare the truth I had feared. Mia was having an affair with Ethan, and they were planning a future together, funded by our life savings. The evidence was irrefutable, a digital trail of deceit that painted a picture so cold it froze my insides. Armed with the truth, I faced Mia, the weight of betrayal hanging heavy between us. How could you? The question was a whisper, more to myself than to her. The confrontation was nothing like the explosive encounters you see in movies. It was quiet, a calm before the storm, laced with a sadness so deep it was palpable. I laid out the evidence before her, each piece a hammer to the facade she had built. The bank statements, the messages, the photos, undeniable proof of her infidelity and financial betrayal. You need to leave, I told her, my voice steady, belying the turmoil inside. Or face the consequences. It wasn't a threat, it was a resignation to the end of the life we had known. Mia's reaction was a mix of shock and realization. As the truth of Ethan's manipulation dawned on her, the layers of deceit peeled away, leaving behind a raw, vulnerable shell of the woman I once knew. Alex, her voice broke, a feeble attempt to salvage what was already lost. But it was too late. The damage was done. Mia had chosen her path, entangled in a web of lies and betrayal, and now she faced the consequences. She packed her things, a tangible symbol of the chasm that had grown between us, her departure marking the end of our shared story. In the days that followed, the emptiness of the house echoed the hollow feeling in my chest. Mia's downfall was complete. Her relationship with me, her financial security, her reputation, all sacrificed at the altar of a deceitful affair. And as for Ethan, he vanished into the shadows from whence he came, leaving Mia to face the aftermath alone. The betrayal cut deep, a wound that would take time to heal. But in the quiet that followed Mia's departure, I found a clarity. The end of our marriage was not just a loss but a liberation from a relationship that had become a lie. Mia's downfall, while tragic, was a consequence of her choices, a harsh reminder that actions bear weight, and sometimes, the price of deceit is everything. The day Mia's legal battles began was the day I truly started to see the end of the tunnel. Not in terms of vengeance or satisfaction. Those feelings had long been buried under the weight of what had transpired, but in the sense of a new beginning, for both of us, albeit on vastly different paths. The legal documents piled on my kitchen table were a stark reminder of the financial mess Mia had entangled us in. Yet, as I sifted through bank statements and legal notices, a part of me couldn't help but feel a pang of sorrow for her. The Mia I had married, the woman I had loved, was now a shadow, caught in the consequences of her choices. Ethan's departure didn't come as a surprise. The moment the tide turned against Mia, he was gone, a specter evaporating at the first sign of trouble. It was cowardly, yet expected. Mia was left to face the music alone, her allies dwindling as the reality of her actions set in. The isolation that followed for Mia was palpable. Friends who we had shared dinners with, vacations, life's milestones, now crossed the street to avoid the fallout. Family, once a tight-knit circle, became distant, their disappointment a barrier too high for Mia to overcome. It was a loneliness that echoed through her life, a stark contrast to the vibrant social network that once surrounded us. In this new chapter of our lives, Mia's attempts at reconciliation were met with a cold reality. I had moved on, not out of spite but necessity. The wounds were too deep, the betrayal too personal. My focus was on rebuilding, on finding peace in the aftermath of the storm. And in that process, I found someone new, someone who understood the scars I carried and saw beyond them. For Mia, the struggle was just beginning. With her reputation tarnished and her professional life in shambles, the uphill battle was steep. The affair, and all that followed, hung over her like a cloud, affecting every aspect of her life. Job opportunities that were once plentiful now seemed out of reach, her actions a barrier to moving forward. But it was in this desolation, this period of isolation and consequence, that the true cost of our choices came to light. Not through reflection or introspection, but in the tangible, often harsh, reality of starting over. Mia, once confident and full of life, now faced the daunting task of rebuilding from the ground up, with limited support and dwindling resources. As for me, my journey was one of healing, of finding a way to forgive, if not forget. The betrayal had reshaped my understanding of trust, of love, but it hadn't broken me. With a new relationship blossoming, I looked towards the future, one where the scars of the past were reminders, not roadblocks, of the life I was determined to rebuild. The morning Mia left for the new city marked a pivotal moment, not just for her, but for me as well. Standing in the doorway of our once shared home, watching her drive away, I felt a mix of emotions, relief, sorrow, and an undercurrent of hope. Hope that Mia would find the fresh start she was so desperately seeking, and perhaps, in her journey, a path back to herself. In the weeks that followed, the silence of the house was a constant reminder of the void Mia's departure had left. But as I navigated through my own process of healing and moving forward, I couldn't help but wonder about Mia's journey in that new city, her struggles and triumphs since starting over. Mia's job search was anything but easy. The stain of our public fallout followed her like a shadow, her name synonymous with scandal in the tight-knit circles of her industry. Despite this, she pushed on, her resilience a testament to the woman I once knew. The offers that came were far from the prestigious positions she was accustomed to, a stark reminder of how far she had fallen. Adjusting to a more modest lifestyle was another hurdle. Gone were the days of impromptu getaways and lavish dinners. In their place, a budget that barely covered the essentials, each dollar a reminder of the financial security she had sacrificed. Building a new social circle was perhaps Mia's greatest challenge. The betrayal and deceit that had marred our marriage left her wary of new connections. Trust, once given so freely, was now a fortress she guarded zealously, allowing few to breach its walls. But it was her health that took the greatest toll. The stress of the past year, compounded by the challenges of her new life, manifested in sleepless nights and a constant battle with anxiety. The decision to seek medical help was a difficult one, admitting vulnerability in a way she never had before. Yet, it was a necessary step towards healing, both physically and emotionally. The conclusion of the legal battles brought a semblance of closure, though the victory was bittersweet. The financial support awarded was a fraction of what she had hoped for, a meager lifeline in her efforts to rebuild from the ruins of our marriage. In her moments of solitude, Mia reached out to old friends and estranged family members. Her attempts at reconciliation met with varying degrees of acceptance. Some doors opened, while others remained firmly closed, the damage too deep to repair. Through it all, Mia's journey was a testament to the human capacity for resilience. The path to redemption was fraught with obstacles, each one a lesson in humility and strength. And as she navigated this new chapter of her life, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride in the woman she was becoming. A woman determined to rise from the ashes of her past, forging a future defined not by her mistakes, but by her unwavering resolve to move forward. The day I bumped into Mia at the downtown market, The air was crisp, a prelude to the coming fall. It was an ordinary Saturday, filled with the mundane task of grocery shopping with my new partner, Sarah. Our life together had become a comforting routine, a stark contrast to the tumultuous final years with Mia. As we turned the corner past the organic produce, there she was. Mia. The shock of seeing her was like a jolt of electricity, halting me in my tracks. She looked different. Older, perhaps, or maybe it was the weight of her experiences that etched new lines on her face. Her eyes met mine, and for a moment, time stood still. The encounter was brief, laden with unspoken words and heavy with the weight of our past. Mia's attempt at small talk felt strained, her voice a soft echo of the woman I once knew. Sarah, sensing the tension, remained politely distant, a silent support by my side. My responses were curt, not out of spite, but from a deep-seated need to protect the peace I had fought so hard to find. Mia's presence, once a source of comfort, now felt like an intrusion into the life I had painstakingly rebuilt. The realization hit Mia hard. The indifference in my voice, the casual way I introduced Sarah, it all underscored the irrevocable change in our relationship. We were strangers, bound only by the memories of a life that no longer existed. As Mia walked away, a part of me wanted to call out, to bridge the gap with words left unsaid. But I remained silent, knowing some distances were too vast to cross. The encounter was a stark reminder of the choices we had made, of the love we had lost, and the separate paths we now walked. In the weeks that followed, I heard snippets of Mia's life through mutual acquaintances. She had found a job, modest but fulfilling, a step towards the self-sufficiency she had struggled to find. New hobbies and interests filled her days, a testament to her resilience and determination to carve out a semblance of happiness in her new reality. Gradually, Mia began to accept her circumstances, embracing personal growth over regret. Her journey was a solitary one, marked by small victories and inevitable setbacks. But it was hers alone, a path she navigated with quiet strength and dignity. The finality of our separation became undeniable, a closed chapter in the book of our lives. Mia's reflection on our shared past, on the home we had built together, was a poignant reminder of what had been lost. But it was also a testament to the enduring power of love, a love that, despite its end, had once been the center of our world. As I watched Mia disappear into the crowd, a sense of closure enveloped me. Our story had ended, not with the bitterness of regret, but with the acceptance of life's impermanent nature. Mia's journey, like mine, was a search for peace, a peace we both had finally found, albeit on separate shores. The sun was just setting, casting a golden glow over the city as I walked home from work, the streets bustling with the usual evening crowd. It's in these quiet moments, amidst the chaos of daily life, that my thoughts drift back to Mia, not with anger or regret, but with the reflective calm that time has granted me. Mia's journey, from the unraveling of our marriage to her solitary path towards self-discovery, had been fraught with hardship and introspection. It hadn't led to redemption in the traditional sense. There was no grand gesture or moment of forgiveness that magically erased the past. Instead, it brought her face to face with the stark reality of her choices and their irreversible impact on both our lives. Through it all, Mia learned, perhaps the hardest way possible, about the importance of integrity in relationships. The absence of honesty, the foundation upon which trust is built, had led to the unraveling of not just our marriage, but of her very sense of self. It was a lesson learned in the aftermath of loss, a painful reminder of the value of truth and transparency. Determined to start anew, Mia channeled her experiences into building a life marked by the lessons she had learned. There was no going back to the way things were, no undoing the damage wrought by dissection and betrayal. Instead, she focused on moving forward, on creating a future that was authentically hers, unencumbered by the need for external validation. Her pursuit of happiness shifted from seeking approval and affection from others to finding a sense of inner peace and contentment. It was a journey inward, a quest for self-acceptance that transcended the external circumstances of her life. As I turned the key in my door, stepping into the warm, inviting space I now shared with Sarah, I couldn't help but reflect on Mia's story. It had become a cautionary tale, not just for me, but for anyone willing to listen. A tale of choices and consequences, of the complexity of human relationships, and the profound impact our actions have on the lives of those we love. In the end, Mia's story served as a somber reflection, a reminder of the fragility of trust and the enduring importance of integrity and honesty in our relationships. It underscored the truth that happiness, true happiness, comes not from the approval of others, but from the peace and acceptance we find within ourselves. As the night settled in, casting shadows across the room, I realized that while Mia's journey had been hers alone, the lessons it imparted were universal. In the complex tapestry of human relationships, integrity and honesty are the